Hello, welcome to another critique episode of Proko. My name is Stan Prokopenko. We're going to be critiquing the rib cage today. If you haven't seen the rib cage lesson, click on the link in the description below. There's a lot of people that submitted their assignments in the Facebook group, so let's jump right in. The first critique submission is from William Shefford. So William, I can see you're still thinking in terms of line. You're looking at contours, you're thinking two-dimensionally, and you need to transition to thinking three-dimensionally, thinking in terms of boxes, cylinders, that sort of thing. That's a really difficult thing to wrap your mind around. The only way is to just start practicing drawing three-dimensional objects. Draw things around you. So for example, when I look at your drawing here, I can see that you drew the cranium and then the jaw, and it's all one line. It's like a contour line around the head. You're not drawing it as volume. So it would have been nice to have started with a ball for the cranium, then cut off the side of that. You just chop off a piece of that ball. So you look how you just put a C in there instead of actually putting a plane. Then mapping out a grid in here. You know, now that's three-dimensional. And also the features you drew are a little bit premature. You didn't figure out the perspective of the face before you put the features on the face. So it would have been nice to have wrapped this equator line all the way around. That'll tell you the brow. And then from here, the nose, and then drop another one for the chin. And then from there, find the jaw. See how when I start thinking three-dimensionally, things start to feel more like volume. When you approach it linearly, it just looks cartoony. So start getting comfortable with three-dimensional shapes. I know we're doing critiques on ribcage and I just drew a head, but the same thing applies, really. You're doing that for all of these forms. I feel like instead of thinking of volumes, you're just going through the motions. You saw somebody do the Loomis head, and so you knew that, okay, you have to draw a circle, and then you have to draw an oval on the side plane, kind of. And then you remembered maybe somebody drew a nose with this kind of blocky form. But it seems like you don't actually understand these forms. You're just going through the motions, like step by step almost. Like you're remembering the lines you have to put down rather than imagining the form and putting the lines that represent that form. Now let's move on to Alejandro Ferreira Hernandez. This is a person that is thinking about form. Alejandro, you are drawing three-dimensional shapes. So you're imagining them three-dimensionally in your head. So this is a good comparison. There are a few areas though where I think you can improve the three-dimensionality. So up here on that first one, if you think about the angles of the front plane or from side to side that you're indicating, these are all good so far. And then, what happened here? See that? This guy is much lower than this guy, and it should relate in the same way that all these other side to side relationships are relating. So, just drawing some horizontal lines across there would have fixed that. The second one looks pretty good. Maybe just not enough of a forward tilt on this top plane that you're ghosting in there. I know the photo you're drawing from, and I think we're gonna be looking right at that top plane. So if my hand is the top plane, you're drawing it as if you're kind of looking under it, but it's actually more like this. You're going to be looking right at that front plane or that top plane. So it would look like just a straight line instead of a top plane. The third one here, rib cage looks great. I like that rib cage. The pelvis looks a little bit twisted. Looks like the sacrum is pointing this way, and then you've got the pelvis kind of going this way. And so things are getting a little bit twisted up. This fourth one, good job actually drawing a female pelvis. I know that the model in the photo you were drawing from was a woman, and so you actually drew a pelvis that is compressed, so good job. For the rest of these, I think you're doing the same thing that you did in this first one. You are not relating the angle from side to side of the bottom corners of the rib cage. You see how you're bringing this bottom edge all the way down here. It should be more about there. That's where it would end. Same thing on this one. It would end right there. Same thing on this one as well, and same thing on this one. So all of them, I think you just forgetting to relate, because you're relating in other places, but just not that bottom corner. So maybe it's just not part of your thought process yet to check every side-to-side relationship as you draw it. Moving on to Todd Yeager. So Todd, I'm seeing Ryan tilting back quite a bit. There's a center line right between the pecs. So notice how Ryan is tilted back more. So always observing the center line helps. Also, in complicated poses and weird angles like that, it might be helpful to start with the big shape first. So getting a gesture line for the whole torso, like that, would have helped. Maybe containing the whole form. You know, if you drew something like that, you could kind of divide that shape a little bit better, and you can judge the width to height relationship of that shape. And then if that's correct, then it's easier to place the rib cage within that and the pelvis where it would belong in there as well. That always helps me, you know, start big and then start cutting it up into smaller and smaller chunks. That would have solved your gesture issue, so he would be leaning back. And also, I'm seeing the rib cage and pelvis much closer together. So let's say right about there is where the rib cage would end. And then right about there is the pelvis. And so look at how much distance there is between them. Very little. You're putting probably 3 times as much distance in there. So big shape, create a container, put it within, look for the gesture, look for angles. This submission is from Saleo Nebula. Okay, Saleo, so you're pointing out here that this is the way you used to draw it, and now these are the ones from, these are your notes from my videos. So watch out that you don't draw a perfectly round ellipse. Looks like this is a perfect ellipse for the rib cage. The rib cage is more of an egg shape. So what you have here as what you used to do is actually more accurate than what you did here from my notes. Remember in my video I said that the apex of the rib cage, of the side plane, that means the part that comes out the most, is about 2/3 of the way down from the top. So it would be, if this is the bottom of the rib cage, this is the top, this should not be the part that comes out the most. And you're showing that as the part that comes out the most. The part that should come out the most is about 2/3 of the way down. So if you divide that into thirds, right in here would be the widest point, just like you have here. So that's correct. The only thing I don't really like about how you used to draw it is that it's just very sharp corner. I would soften it so that it's more of an egg with the widest point 2/3 down. What you have here looks pretty good. That's a good curve. Another thing that I'm seeing is that you're not only putting the widest part in the wrong spot, but the top and bottom you're drawing as the same thickness, but they're not. See how the top is this thick and then the bottom is this thick, and that's the same, but it's not. It shouldn't be. The top should get much narrower. So if I'm going to draw a rib cage, let's okay, there's front or back view. Right in here, about 2/3 down is the widest part, and then right here is the width of the top plane, and there's the width of the bottom plane. Try to remember that it's an egg, it's not an ellipse, it's not just a stretched out ball. I do like your analogy here of the thoracic arch being like the laugh line on a face. That's pretty cool. It's like the jowls right there, right? You can see it on on older people. You start getting those jowls hanging there. That's pretty cool. That's a good way to remember it. Moving on to this drawing you have on the right. I like most of it. The only thing is the thoracic arch in this one, actually. You're not really following your analogy. See how you have this curve? Both of them are curving this way. Whereas on this one, you're kind of showing it like that. From 3/4 view, the roundness of the rib cage starts to overpower the U shape of the front, right? So if you kind of think about it for a minute, from the front, you do see this U shape. But from the side, everything's wrapping this way. Everything's wrapping this way. So do you draw the thoracic arch like this, or do you just draw it like this? Well, it depends on the angle. You know, how much is it towards the front or how much is it towards the side? In this case, it looks to me like it should be more curved outward. So this one is obviously going to be curved outward because it's following the U shape and it's following the roundness of the rib cage. So that, no question about it. In here, it won't be as curvy as the side on the left, or as the curve on the left, but it will still be a little bit curvy, maybe like this. Just a very subtle curve. So, okay, nice job, Soleo. Let's look at what Austasia Weissite submitted. Okay, Austasia. So you're drawing things linearly still as well, just like William did. So you need to also start drawing more boxes, drawing things three-dimensionally. And another thing I'm seeing is that you are trying to fit the rib cage too tight into the body. You're kind of distorting the rib cage in order to really fit it. So it looks like that rib cage is starting to blow up and it's starting to press up against the body. So for example, in this one, see how you're really just following the contour, and then here you start to go outward. It's not really going to touch there. You have to leave some room for muscles. So in some areas, it will protrude from the surface. It's maybe like right here, that rib cage is really pushing out to the side, and anything that's covering the rib cage is just stretched so thin that you don't really even see it. But from there, you're going to have some scapular muscles, you're going to have the lat, and that is going to take up this area in here. Okay, so really look for the actual shape of the rib cage and think of it three-dimensionally. So see how in here you have this angle, right, of the shoulders? If the rib cage is tilted this way, then the bottom of the rib cage should also be tilted that way. So in here, let's end the rib cage here like you did, but then bring the other side down farther, all the way over here. And then remember that the thoracic spine curves this way. It curves over the roundness of the rib cage. Okay, let's look at another one of yours. Maybe this first one. You're stretching it out and you're making it really tight in there again. It looks like you're just not familiar with what the rib cage should look like. And so it's hard for you to put a rib cage shape in the body. And so you're kind of just drawing a shape where it might fit in the upper part. Now I want to move on to Rebecca Shea, because Rebecca, you're doing the same thing. Look at the contours you're showing. Look how wobbly this is. You're not drawing the structure of the rib cage, you're just drawing a shape in the top part of the body. And again, in here, look at how wobbly that is. Look for a simple curve. Look for angles. Whoops. I almost made that same mistake. So I've established this as the angle from side to side. So now if I'm drawing the top plane, I have to make sure that that angle converges somewhere. Now how much do I converge? Do I go like that? Or do I make it almost straight? Well, that's up to you really. How much perspective, how much, what's the aspect ratio of the camera? You kind of have to feel it out. I mean, you could really push that. The closer you are to the person, the more of that effect will happen. But it's really up to you. Okay, then from there, drop the side plane. And then I'm not going to draw that top plane parallel to the bottom plane. I'm going to lean it forward a little bit, just like that. Then find the center line. Find an edge to separate the side plane. And then maybe divide this in half. That's the sternum. And then there's the thoracic arch. And this is a female rib cage, so I'm gonna remember female rib cage. If you really want to make it more feminine, that thoracic arch will be more like this. Male or masculine rib cage, it will make it more like this. So I'm making this much sharper of a corner. Next is Neville. With Neville, I really just wanted to show what he did. This is such a useful exercise. He's drawing the rib cage pretty much from every angle. Starting in the center, just straight on from about eye level. And then as you go up, he's rotating that rib cage back, and as he goes down, he's rotating it forward. Then as you go left, you rotate the rib cage left, and as you go to the right, you rotate it right. So then you just have this giant grid of the rib cage from every angle. And so you have to draw it from every angle. It's very tedious, but once you're done with it, you've just drawn like 50 rib cages. You know, that's more than anybody else drew in the exercise. So that's good. The only thing I would want to say though is try to keep the sizes correct. If this whole row is supposed to be tilted just a little bit forward, why aren't they the same height? Draw horizontal and then just make sure that all the rib cages fit within that space. But let me show you what I mean. So let's say I'm drawing the rib cage tilted forward a little bit more. So okay, so that's leaning forward a little bit. If I was to now draw this rotated to the left quite a bit, let's draw perfect horizontals. And let's find the angle, so it's tilted forward a little bit. And look at this, we can find where this point is by drawing another horizontal. So it looks like I need to bring this down a little bit more. So there's that whole plane. If I'm seeing this much of that top plane, then I should see that same amount even if I rotate it a little bit. So I could do the same thing for the bottom of the sternum. Now what if I want to draw something in between that? Okay, now let's imagine what it's going to look like. You can lightly draw something in if that helps you to kind of start exploring. Okay, so there we have one that's tilted to the left a little bit more, and it's leaning forward. It's somewhere in between this one and this one, maybe a little bit closer to this one. But anyway, great exercise. Thank you, Neville, for suggesting it. And that was the last critique. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for everybody who submitted their critiques. I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, have you seen my new app, Skelly, the posable anatomy model for artists? Go to proko.com/Skelly app or click this button to get it on iOS or Android. If you like this video, don't be all selfish. Share it with your friends. And if you want to be updated about new videos, click this button or go to proko.com/subscribe. Also, check out the Anatomy for Artists group on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/anatomy for artists.